just rock ourselves to sleep and allow everything out west to dominate the whole county. So I looked at what makes a community great. What are 3 components that really move and motivate a community to move in a positive way? So one of the first things that I identified was definitely entrepreneurship, right? Because if you own it, then you have power. You get to say, you get to decide, you get to vote. So we knew right away entrepreneurship was a conversation that we needed to have. And then I thought about, how does that actually relate to our education system? If I can teach you in the 5th grade about entrepreneurship, because all I got growing up was, what do you want to be when you grow up? No one ever asked me, what do I want to own when I grow up? What is it that I want to possess when I grow up, beyond my degree? So I said, we have to talk about education. And I realized after combing through a lot of studies that when you have a couple of things in the mix, entrepreneurship, you have a solid education program, it does directly affect the crime and the population and the people who are in those downtrodden areas. So we needed to bring in our economic base. We need to talk about how all of those 3 things are tied together. So that's why you are here tonight, but you are not here to spectate. You are here to participate. So there are going to be some things that we ask you to do. And I don't want to, go ahead and come up, Kiana. I don't want to get too far off script. Ed, I'm sorry already. Just based on the information that you're hearing, based on the conversation that we are going to have. And I want you all, if you don't have Twitter, you can write them down the old-fashioned way. We have some very handsome ushers, and they can take that information, and we'll try our best to get it answered. But we want you to be a part of what's going on in Wyandotte County from a position of your voice. If you never share it, then you can't complain, right? It's just like if you never go vote, you can't complain. It's the same concept. So all of us, or say all of us.
All of us.
Come on, say it like you mean it. Say all of us.
All of us.
That includes you. Say that includes you.
That includes you.
Are a part of this conversation tonight. Oh, look at you, following the whole thing. Well, let's do it right. Let's start over. Say all of us.
All of us.
That includes you.
That includes you.
Is a part of this conversation tonight.
Is a part of this conversation tonight.
Wonderful. So if you don't have Twitter, you can write it. And if you do have Twitter, Kiana is going to come. And she's going to give us some Twitter instructions.
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So before we get started tonight, I want to ask you all to pull out your phone. Everybody, I'm sure, has Facebook, all that good stuff, Twitter. As she mentioned, if you don't have Twitter, just write your questions down throughout the evening, and we'll have people collect those for you. You're going to go to the Twitter app or Facebook, and you're going to find EBB, and that can be @BizEBB for Twitter. On Facebook, if you just type in entrepreneurship, economic business, it should pop up and you should see the logo associated with the account. For this evening's conversation, you are not a spectator tonight. Your voice is vital. It's very important to all the progress and the small business growth here in Wyandotte County. So we want to make sure that we hear from you guys. And so during this conversation, the hashtag that you will use will be EBB conversation. I will come back up later in the evening, and some of the things that you guys either tweet or write, we will ask that out publicly, and you guys will be able to hear from the panelists and from Cheree in regard to your questions. So if you haven't already, please like us on social media, Facebook. I give everybody time to do that. Did everybody find it okay? Yeah, so we will attempt to answer all the questions this evening once you guys get those taken care of. Thank you.
All right, come on up, Bray. How many of you saw Bray out in the hallway with her tea? Can you all give her a hand? Are these mics on here? Are the seat mics on? Okay, for the record, the seat mics are not on. Just want somebody to know that. Okay, so I don't know how many of you all may have seen Bray on TV. She is a young entrepreneur in the 4th grade, and I'm not gonna steal her thunder. Let's go around this way, baby, so they can actually see you. Get your tea, get your tea. She is in the 4th grade, and she started her own business. So some of us have no excuse, right? Because she's in the 4th grade and started her own business. I'm gonna say it one more time. She's in the 4th grade, and she started her own business, yes. So I want you to share with them whatever you want them to know about Grandma's Tea, okay? Tell them how you got started, tell them what entrepreneurship means to you.
Hi, my name is Bray Aisha Avery. I'm 10 years old. I go to Santa Fe Elementary, and my business is Grandma's Tea. I sell all herbal teas, all caffeine free, and if you haven't, I have a booth outside, if you haven't seen it. And basically what entrepreneurship means to me is, I think it's a very powerful thing. It feels good to know that you have something that you can call your own. The reason I started my business is my grandma, she was the first person to give me tea. And ever since then, I just loved it, and I drank it on a regular basis. And then after that, my mom, she had her own business, so I thought, wow, that looks cool, I want one of those. So then we brainstormed, and we thought of an idea. We thought of tea, and then we thought of my grandma. So then we started putting together the website and everything, and we thought of Grandma's Tea.
So tell us what kind of tea you have.
Okay, so our price ranges from $5 to $7.50, and I have 3 different flavors: Raspberry Berry, Wonderment, and Sleepy Time. And we also sell loose tea, and we also sell in pouches like this, and we also sell in tin cans, but we just sold the last 10 cans. Where I see my business going in the future is the big corporate offices, the stores. I just want to say, keep motivated. You guys got this. My website is grandmastea.com, and you can go follow me on Facebook at Grandma's Tea. And I'm also starting an Instagram and a Twitter account, and you can learn more. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Tea Time with Bray, and our booth is outside.
All right, you all give her another hand. I know I wasn't crazy. It's not on. Okay. So the other thing that I want to share with you all tonight before we get into our award, our Legacy of Excellence Award, is we are in the middle of a spring cohort. When EBB started, we started teaching entrepreneurs or people who were wanting to start a business in an 8-week session. And we started in the fall, and then we start in the spring. And to date, we have graduated about 47 entrepreneurs. 67% of them are still in business today. Everyone who starts the program finishes the program. And so I want to bring up 3 of our aspiring entrepreneurs. 4. We got 4. Oh, hello. 4 of our entrepreneurs who are currently in our spring cohort. They're going to come very quickly, and they are going to share just a little bit about their business concept with you guys. So we talked about so many things, but I won't steal their thunder. So you guys go ahead and come on up. And if you guys can welcome them as they come.
How y'all doing? My name is Brandon Redmond. I came to Kansas City in 2011. I'm originally from Joliet, Illinois. It's like 30 minutes outside of Chicago. I came down here on an academic and athletic scholarship to Iowa University. So I came down here in 2011. I didn't know much about the area, but it was nice. And I was small, so I was like, yeah, I'll stay. It wasn't until I met my wife. So I met my wife in 2013. We bought a house in 2015. She was pregnant in 2017. And from that, Triple B's residential and commercial properties was created. I'm a contractor. I love to do anything hands-on with carpentry, whether it's floors, tile, framing, you name it. I'm self-taught. I always tell myself if I gotta pay somebody X amount of dollars, I might as well do it myself. And if I mess up, then I guess I can pay them. So from there, I just said, if they can do it, why can't I? And my dad tried to tell me about it when I was like 14, but as a kid, you don't really pay attention. But as I'm getting older now, I'm almost 30, it's like, I want to give something to my kids. So for me, being my own boss sounds good. I don't want to wake up to somebody telling me what to do every day. I hate it now, but I do it because it's my job. At the same time, it's like, why can't I do it? I guess that's my why. Why not me? When everybody else can do it. So for me, when I met Kara through my wife, she's somewhere here, but through her program at UMKC, my wife asked me, she said, you want to do it? I said, sure. I gave it a chance, and I'll tell you what, it's probably the best experience I've had. Better than me going to a 4-year college. I've learned more in this class than in a 4-year college ever taught me. And I'm a business management major. So, I can attest to what's going on. So, like I said, if you guys got any questions, or if you want to, I have a little portfolio made on my phone, because I couldn't put it out here, but I can show you guys my work. And again, that's just my direction right now. So thank you. Oh, here's my wife.
I won't speak that long. My name is Lanisha Frazier, and I am in the startup phase of a new experience of fusing my passion for literature, local arts, wine, and great conversation. So I'm in the process of kind of formulating that and trying to see how I can make it work and to bring it together. So that's my story.
Hello, everybody. Hello. My name is Cynthia Uzoma. I'm from Nigeria, so I have an accent in case if you can't hear me very well, but I know I will make you hear me very well. Anyway, okay. I'm a registered nurse by profession. I have a business. It's called A Blessed Choice of Care. A Blessed Choice of Care started October 2015. Why? Because I've been going around visiting clients in their home, and I found the need for that. Just to smile alone when you come to their house, I was like, oh, there's a solution, at least to be a companion for people that are seniors and people that are disabled, that want to live at home and be peaceful and graceful in their home. So I started a home care. I know home care business has been everywhere, but why is my own special? Because one, I want them to be blessed when we come to their home. Again, I want them to be worry-free, knowing that somebody is taking care of them. Another thing is that I want them to be safe in their environment. And again, I want them to relax and be peaceful and enjoy their home, knowing that somebody is taking care of them. So I started it, but in as much as that, I don't know anything about business. All I know is taking care of somebody in the house. So in the hospital, I still work. I'm a mental health professional. So when I met Cheree doing a show in the UMKC. So it was very, very interesting. I was like, oh, I think I will join and then probably know the basics of business, which really, really helped me a lot. Though I've been going and doing a networking, there's so many people that I know here that through networking, but I was like, okay, I have to do my business and then start off and then be able to stay in business. Not only doing a skilled nursing, but stay in business. Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. So I am in the phase of rebranding / starting up, and I am Robin Shines. I am driven by purpose. My purpose is helping people, and that is my passion, and that's what fuels my purpose. So Driven by Purpose is a brand that empowers, uplifts, and inspires others through blogs, creative design t-shirts, and through personal speaking engagements. So DBP Creative Prints is the home of the 3D floral t-shirt, and it also creating bold statement t-shirts. So you can be your own walking testimony by wearing DBP's t-shirts. And if you're ready to be your own walking testimony by either creating your own or wearing one of the bold statement t-shirts, then you can see me after this and I can help you create your own experience.
Thank you. You all give them another hand. Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and move to the next phase of this evening. And I'm gonna do it without crying. Somebody write that down. At least I said it. The Legacy of Excellence Award is given to an individual who has demonstrated tenacity, dedication, and excellence in the Wyandotte County community. Recipients of this award must have effectively shown personal participation in the areas of entrepreneurship, education, and economic development. The 2019 Entrepreneur Business Basics Legacy of Excellence Award is proudly presented to Dr. Latoria Chin. She is currently the Compliance Officer for Minority Supplier for International Speed Corps. Throughout her career, Dr. Chin has accomplished and continues to accomplish that goal for this community in numerous capacities. If you know Dr. Chin, you already know. She has been appointed to serve on local boards by mayors of Wyandotte County, appointed to serve on state boards by governors of the state of Kansas, and appointed to sit on international boards by national and major organizations such as NASCAR. She has been recognized with awards from numerous organizations such as the City of Wichita, Distinguished Black Achievers, Friends of Yates, Girl Scouts, Governor's Office of Kansas, National Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, University of Missouri-Columbia, Urban League of Greater Kansas City, USD, 500 Reasons to Believe. But it's not only Dr. Chin's recognitions and awards and appointments that make her the perfect recipient for this award. She has worked tirelessly to help all of us, somebody say all of us, to be accountable in the areas of compliance, workforce development, and minority enterprise development. Her heart shows up wherever she is, whether she's standing in the office of the governor or sitting at the decision table in Daytona, Florida, or helping in her lifetime church home, Evangelistic Center Outreach right here in KCK. Dr. Chin's hearts, hands, and help are the example of her selfless and giving spirit to everyone that comes in contact with her. So it is with the most humble honor, and I will ask if you can stand to please stand, that we present the 2019 Legacy of Excellence Award to Dr. Latoria Chin.
That I accept the very first Legacy of Excellence Award. There are so many people to thank tonight, and I would be remiss if I did not thank the following: my family. My sister is here, Connie, somewhere. She's somewhere in here. I can't see it. Okay, I see her hand. Secondly, I want to thank my church family, the Evangelistic Center Ministry Fellowship. My bishop is here, if he will stand. Bishop Jack Vaughn, along with his wife, who is my pastor, Pastor Carolyn Vaughn. My best friends are here, I think, still. Gail, Cheryl, Pat, Sylvia, Toot's real name is Nadine, I'm sorry. And all of my friends and associates, and then to NASCAR and Jeff Berger of Kansas Development Corporation for putting up with me for the last 20 years. To the Unified Government, Ms. Sharon Reed, who allows me to consult on our city projects. And then I want to thank my enemies, my naysayers, and all those who said, well, she ain't all that. I want to thank you so much for helping me out. As I conclude, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it, and God bless you.
So what Dr. Chin doesn't know is that in addition, you can come this way. In addition to her receiving the very first Legacy of Excellence Award, she has been a mentor to me for probably a good 14 years. And anyone else who's looking for her to mentor, let me put this out there right now, my space is not up. My space is not up. You're not getting rid of me. But she has been a sounding board for much of what I have developed and continue to develop. And like her servant heart, she has quietly, for the past 5 years, sponsored someone in my class. So I thought it only fitting that we actually established the Dr. Latoria Chin Scholarship in your honor. So we will continue that legacy, and a lot of times it serves for an entrepreneur who's just thinking about getting started but may not have the funds to actually attend the class. And so all of you all actually have an option to donate to the scholarship fund. The QR code is there, but it is established as of today. So we are excited, we're honored, and if there's anything else that I can ever do for you, please give me a call. Absolutely, absolutely. One more time for Dr. Chin. Okay, you guys still doing all right? All right, well, we're gonna move to the conversation part of this. So when we started talking about entrepreneurship, putting all those key components together, if you know anything about Dell Gines and Federal Reserve Bank, he does extensive, phenomenal research on entrepreneurship across, I'm going to go ahead and say the United States, and I'm not sure yet if you've gotten outside the globe yet, but it won't be long. And he brings that great information back to all of us in the community in several different ways. Last year, he published a report on Black women entrepreneurs, and he gave us all of the statistics, and he showed us what we were missing and how we can fill those gaps and what resources we need to incorporate or maybe even just pull from. He presented that information in August of last year, if I'm not mistaken. Was it August or September? It was in the fall. It was in the fall. And when he finished presenting the information, he challenged us. He said, I'm giving you all the statistics. Now it's your turn. You need to activate your communities. You need to have these conversations. You need to collate yourself together. You need to collaborate with people who are already doing these things and make it happen. And so on the Wyandotte County side, Dell, I want you to know that tonight, in a continuation from tonight, we are going to do something with the information. We are going to continue to make your information relevant and make it alive in Wyandotte County. So I want you all to welcome Dell Gines to the stage. You can come on up, Dell. So we have the entrepreneurship piece. The second piece of tonight is the education. Last year, I want to say, are you still in year one, Dr. Faust? Oh wow, he's still new. He's making great strides though. Last year we had the opportunity to bring in and accept and receive the finesse of Dr. Faust, all the way from Houston, and he is the superintendent of schools for USD 500. I told my son outside, he's over the high schools, the middle schools, the elementary schools, the preschools, he's over all the schools. And so what better representation or voice to really have this conversation with us tonight than the person who is the foremost in charge. Will you all please welcome Dr. Charles Faust to the stage. And last but certainly not least, we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about education, we talk about economic development, but really community and how all of that ties together. We are privileged this evening to have none other than the very first African-American district attorney for the state of Kansas, DA Mark Dupree. Will you all please welcome him to the stage? Conversation. There's some questions that I have, but we want you to engage. If you haven't started tweeting yet, tweet whatever questions as we go over here and talk about what is and what needs to happen now. Okay, I think this is on now. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me good? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all for coming and agreeing to sit down with me. You have no clue I could say anything. So you have a lot of trust right now. Yes, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So the first thing I want, Del, is if you can really just explain to them as much as you can in a nutshell about really where entrepreneurship is in terms of Wyandotte County right now. What are we facing? Where are we at?
Well, hello. Okay. First, I need to send a shout out to my main man, Reverend Rowan from First Baptist Church, who was gracious enough to allow me to run my community program through the Fed there for almost 2.5 years in the basement. His hospitality was phenomenal, and the use of the church and the volunteers, and so he's someone that I respect. Christina Long from the Create campaign, back there up here. Neon Dion King and her consulting company. Black CEO, Donetta Watson, sorry for the last name. She hosted one of the calls with the Black women startups, and I see a lot of you others that I recognize from my time here, so I love you all, I'm glad I'm here. You know, you all struggle. So, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, especially when it comes to Black entrepreneurship, one of the first things, so I did a 5-year program where I was coming up to Northeast KCK every month, and sometimes more than once a month, called Econ Ave. And the first thing that I noticed here was the deficit of Black entrepreneurship in the city. You all really struggle on it. I mean, it's not just you. It's a struggle in my hometown, because I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, my Black community. It's a struggle in Kansas City. It's a struggle in Wichita, where Christina's from. We can go on and on and on. But you have a particular challenge in regard to that really is very important for you to address, because your community is very equivalent to mine. Where we were ranked in Omaha, North Omaha was the #1 childhood poverty rate for African American children in the nation, and the #1 for adult poverty rate for Black people. We're 13% of the population. The first thing when I came to Wyandotte, which is why I think all the people in Northeast KCK like me so much, is because I came from a place just as broke as you all. So we can speak the same language, and the same things that are very similar to my community as yours is there's a serious deficit of business class here. People aren't starting producing businesses. They're not really encouraged. The ones that are started are very, very small. You're under-resourced, you're under-supported, you're under-encouraged, you're under-acknowledged. One of the things, and then I'll turn it back over to you, is I did at one of the very first Econ Ave meetings, I think it was the second one, we had about 150 people there. And what I did was I went to all the Sumner High, and I don't know if you remember this, Rev, I went to all the old Sumner High yearbooks. And I started photocopying all what was happening in Sumner High every year, where people would invest in the yearbook and sponsor the yearbook. All of these Black businesses that were in your community, butcher shops, morticians, you can go all down the list, and I showed them that for a reason. I said, what existed as a thriving business community once is no longer here, but that does not mean it cannot rise again. It'll be different, but the energy is still there. Black people have entrepreneurship in their DNA. We just have to figure out how to manifest it.
Thank you, Dell. Thank you. Dr. Faust, do you want to share with us what the school district does from an entrepreneurial perspective? I know you all have some great programs right now.
So it all starts with the school. The adults that have the aspirations, it all starts with us. And so what we are attempting to do is ignite the aspiration. And so one of the things that we are actually working with right now is Diploma Plus. And I know that several of you have heard that's the mantra of the district, Diploma Plus, Diploma Plus, Diploma Plus. So what is Diploma Plus? I often ask the same things. So we're introducing students. We're introducing businesses to students. We're offering and we're introducing them to the business way. So we have courses that provide students entrepreneurial activity that they will be able to actually, one, know what the definition is for an entrepreneur. We're talking specifically about plans, business plans, and having kids, when they leave, of course, write business plans. However, we're starting earlier, that's at the end. But when we look at our middle schoolers, we're giving them opportunities to make decisions, because it is an option to make a decision. In the elementary school, what we are trying to do is get the adults to allow kids to, again, make decisions. Because when we talk about, and I think you said it, individuals ask, what are you going to be when you grow up? And that we still ask students, what are you going to be? What are you going to be? And so then we have to actually work on our core belief. Do we actually believe they can do something? And so that's where we are starting. So we're actually having to go back and retrain the adults to actually believe that the kids can do it. Because oftentimes the dreams are, as we call them, deferred because someone doesn't believe. And so who gets the right to tell you that you can't do it? No one. No one. So what we're doing, of course, is like in our business classes, and we have classes at our high schools. All of them have business pathways or a pathway that will provide them an opportunity to get what we call an endorsement, and some of those are what we call our dual credit courses or our concurrent courses that we work with our community colleges or some of our private colleges, and so the students at the high school are able to evoke some of those opportunities. We're currently in our second year of Diploma Plus, so individuals will see it's like, well, we have graduating seniors, and what did they get? My child didn't get it. So that's not actually a real sample. That would be a sample, but the actual control group is with our current sophomores.
Wonderful, wonderful. D.A. Dupree, I know that you all have started or launched a program inside of the schools. And if you can speak to that, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So we have started a program called BOLD, B-O-L-D-D. I know it's only one D, but I needed to fit my acronym, so I added one. So brilliant, outstanding leaders determined to be the difference. And the focus of this group, this mentoring group, is simply to get inside the schools for the students to meet assistant district attorneys, the district attorneys, judges, business owners, commissioners, so on and so forth. And so once a month, we go into the school and we sit down with these individuals. Well, what happened is when I became the district attorney, I thought back on how I was exposed to the legal field. And it was when I was 14 years old, as a sophomore, freshman or sophomore, whatever age it was supposed to be at 14. I was in the right grade at 14. So put that out there. I was freshman is when this happened. And so with that, I recall being a part of having an opportunity, because my grades were good, to shadow someone downtown. And they didn't tell me who it was going to be. They just said, wear your best suit. And so I put on my communion suit, Bishop, and I have my black tie, black suit on, and I went down there. And they stopped us at the courthouse. We got off at the courthouse, me and a couple friends of mine, and walked in. And they took me to this courtroom where there were a lot of attorneys all swarming around. and I sat down on the back row, and they hit the bench, and someone yelled, "All rise." Well, I didn't see anyone, but a whole bunch of folks walking around, and a lady hit the bench again and said, "Boy, get up." And so I stood up, and this short African-American man with a little bitty afro comes walking out, and it was Judge Cordell Meeks Jr. And that was my first time ever seeing a lawyer and or a judge that looked like me. And everybody else who were the lawyers in the room were Caucasian folks. And so I was sitting there, and now I'm in awe. And that one-day experience turned into a 7-year mentor-mentee relationship where I was able to have conversations with him, and he would expose me to, hey, this is the criminal justice system, but look, I'm not a criminal. I'm the judge. And you can do this too. And so through that, it exposed me to the criminal law side, to becoming a lawyer. I didn't have anyone in my family who was a lawyer at the time. We had plenty of preachers, and so we had that down, but I didn't know I was able to become a lawyer. And so when I look back at that one exposure gave me the ability and quite frankly, in my opinion, changed the trajectory of where I could go. Because now I see it. And so from that, when I became the DA, that was the first thing that we did. We created the BOLD initiative to expose our young people to the criminal justice system from the right side. And so we go into the schools, we go into the community organizations, and we simply sit, talk, and expose them to what you can do and how to be involved in this.
It's a couple of things I want to go like 4 different ways with this, but I'm going to stay with you for just a moment because one of the studies that I read talked about how when there are Black entrepreneurs in the Black community, Del, touching on what you talked about when you were going through the yearbook and you were pointing out all of the Black-owned businesses that are no longer in existence in that way. But how when we have Black businesses or minority businesses in our communities, our children are less likely to see the other side of D.A. Dupree because that Black business owner is going to talk to Dr. Faust's students about pulling up your pants, taking care of yourself, making sure that you're not stealing. You're not going to steal from me. I'm Mr. Joe. I own the store. And so what we have to do is we have to reinvent almost that same level of engagement with our Black business owners who may not have the side store anymore, who may not have the community center anymore. So my question to you, Del, is have you seen in all of your travels any one community that has been able to tie together all 3 of these components successfully, and what is it that we can do to model that here?
Well, the views in this presentation do not necessarily represent the views of the Federal Reserve Bank or the Federal Reserve Bank system. And then, I was remiss. I didn't even give a shout out to you. Like, let's give her a hand. I mean, we're here because of her. My first experience with her is, I can't remember, we met somewhere, and then I had a little...
It was Ruby Jeans.
Was that the first meeting?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
It was before that, because then I had her do a podcast recording, because I had a little website called Black Side Business, and she was one of my people on my podcast, and so.
And I think I had the highest number of listeners too.
I shut that website down real fast. So.
Okay.
No, actually, it's still up, but you're still on there somewhere. I haven't checked the hit count though lately. I have to check that now. It's on top of mind. I think it's very rare in my travels across the nation where I've seen a highly functioning Black community. You have different segments, like maybe suburbs in different cities. But usually not what we consider your traditional urban core, our historical Black communities. You don't really see a lot of high-functioning Black communities in that way. And by that, I mean you have this good set of connectivity between, business ownership, between professional ownership, between community members, between faith-based institutions and educational institutions, which is part of the challenge. And some of that is we're to blame for some of that. I mean, we lost our way in integration. And as a result, we've been lost for 40 years, wandering in a wilderness. And we could talk more about that, which is why I gave you the disclaimer. But Your short answer is not really, and I'm sure there may be one out there. You have communities like Atlanta that is doing really, really good, but even in Atlanta, when you look at them and you start looking at the breakdowns between the haves and have-nots, you still have this huge underclass of black communities, even though we call it Chocolate City. White people still own the majority of Atlanta, even though you're seeing emerging business classes, professional classes, tech classes, which is all good. But even then, even within all of that perception of prosperity, large percentages of blacks are still struggling within that community as well. And so it's not that far out of reach, but it requires us to have a renewed mindset, a different kind of mindset about ourselves and the way that we conduct business. And so I'll leave it at that high level, but I want to say one thing before we turn it over to some of the other conversation. What if we change that school conversation? Because I'm very much like you. I came out of 1991, I was one of the top 10% of all African-American academics in the nation at the time. And I was very good at math and science. And so they were throwing scholarships at me and said, you're a black guy and you're really good at math and science. You should be an engineer and we'll give you money to be an engineer. So, and I remember, and I tell this story a lot in other conversations, not one time was I told I could own anything. Not a house, and definitely not a business going through all of this. But I was told, you're smart enough to become a engineer, look at your test scores, I think 30 ACT, all of this different kind of stuff that they evaluate. Now, what if instead of stop asking our kids, what do you want to do when you grow up, or what do you want to be, what if we started saying, what do you want to own when you grow up? Because the transfer of terminology, the way that we use language is the way that our mindset is structured. And so when you repeat certain words, I do a lot of work with reentry. So I've taught over 150 kids adjudicated as adults in Omaha in the prison. And we don't call them ex-felons, and we call them returning citizens, because there's an expectation that we put with the change of terminology that when you come back, you are coming back as a citizen, which implies certain responsibilities to your community, not an X something, because even if you put an X in front of it, you still have labeled on you what was behind the X. So these are things that are very important, which is why I'm super amped up about what you're talking about doing, because I think that's critical within our education system to repurpose our kids' minds.
Can we, Dr. Faust, I'm going to put you right on the spot right here. Is that a simple thing? You mentioned that we have to, as educators, retrain the teachers on how to actually speak to the student. Can we say to our educators in kindergarten, in preschool, reiterate to them, not what do you want to be when you grow up, but what do you want to own? Is that something that we can get the school district to do? It's free. It doesn't cost anything. Can we do that?
So, things that I learned over my years and individuals out here, it is not retraining the adult mind is the issue. Retraining the parent to say that you will, because I call those the you will statements. And there's so often that we don't use the you will statements. It's always, are you sure you can do this? We're so busy wanting to get someone else to either publicly affirm or endorse that I'm okay or that I can do it, versus empowering our own children to say, you're going to be successful. You don't need anyone to tell you, I'm telling you, I'm standing by, you're going to be successful. We don't do that. And so the moment that, we look at what's going on the outside, you're not going to be like this person. You're not going to, so we know what we're not supposed to do, but we never tell them what they can do. And so if you ask, even our adults, what is it that they're supposed to do? They can't give you a clear definition. And so retraining, as I said, that's core value. So it's going to take a minute for us to talk about what our kids can actually do. Because we have to have more parent input. You think about, we're talking about economic development, we're talking about education, and we think about Where are the adults? We actually often think about that. I actually would say that if we want people to pour back in the community, what do we have to do? We have to educate them. We have to educate them and provide them access. So,
Let me ask you, DA Dupree. Dell touched on the fact that there is a thriving, and I'm just putting it out there, Dell, that it's thriving in Omaha, reentry program when it comes to, what did you call them, Dell? I want to use the right word, returning citizens. Is that something that is currently in the works? I know that we're building a new juvenile detention center. Is that, no?
That's correct.
Oh, that is correct. Okay. I tried to do my homework. I really did try to do my homework. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how the community feels about that. But here's a good thing. Inside the juvenile detention center, the new one, is there a way for us to adopt this mindset of one more time, Dell, returning citizens into the juveniles in this level? Can we bring them some type of entrepreneurial program that will at least, while you're sitting, why don't you learn about how you can make money the right way? Is that something that we can implement?
I believe the answer is yes. I believe. So I think they can hear me. I do think that it is possible. All right, we're down to two. No, I do believe that it's possible, and but it takes folks, one, in the community, letting the powers that be know that that's what we want and what we are interested in. And the reason why I shook my head back and forth concerning the new juvenile detention center is because I have mixed feelings about it, right? We in this country have spent more money on building prisons and jails, quadruple the amount of money that we're spending on schools and education. And so it bothers me when I look out my window and I see this building going up to house our juvenile. Now, I gotta tell you, it's better than where they are now because they're in the adult jail. And so our children are in the same jail cells as we put our adults. Now, they're on a different floor. We got some flowers painted on the walls. And so something needed to happen. So that's where my, back and forth comes from there. It is possible, but the community and the government has to change the way, as Dale said it, as how we look at those that are coming back into the community. Oftentimes when people go to prison or go to jail or go to wherever and they come back, they still have that stigma on them. Right? And so across the country, you have so many states and cities who are trying to ban the box so that they won't have to say that they have this conviction on their record. Here this summer, the DA's office is doing a summer-long expungement project so that we can clear the record of those who have went and served their time and thus supposed to be able to come back as returning citizens instead of ex-convicts, right? And so it is possible, but we have to change the thought process of what we see for those. Now, the tough part is, and it goes right back to what Dr. Faust was saying, how do you train the community to see things in a different way? Because if we're still yelling and saying, we don't want that ex-jail offender, convict, or whatever other names folks have for them, living in my neighborhood, coming to my church, being around my kids, coming to my schools. Well, the government is looking and all we're hearing is that. And usually the folks who are saying that are the ones who are voting. So let me stop right there.
All right, community. In the seats conversation, are you all tweeting questions? Has anyone tweeted a question that we need to address right now? Kiana, do you have someone? No? Okay. Make sure you tweet your questions. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question right now that doesn't have Twitter or want to make a comment? That's hot and loaded. I shouldn't have opened that up. Okay, here we go.
Grandma's tea.
From Twitter, okay, Brea, come on down, baby. Here's a question from Twitter. How are small business entrepreneurs supposed to survive in a world where corporate plays in Wyandotte County are increasingly owned by million-dollar companies? Okay, I'm gonna say it again. How are small business entrepreneurs supposed to survive in a world where corporate places in Wyandotte County are increasingly owned by million-dollar companies? I'm gonna start just with my own Kira opinion. I think part of being an entrepreneur is really starting. And I say that because we all have great ideas, but a lot of times we don't get them off the ground. So if you are really in here and you're serious about wanting to start your small business, I would say this: that's not your competition, right? That million-dollar company is going to exist whether they're over by the Legends or they're in Philadelphia. So the question is how is your business actually going to make an impact in your community? And that's the thing that we're talking about. The small business owner is you. You are the small business owner. If you just look at Wyandotte County, if you drive state parallel Leavenworth, it's largely made up of small businesses. We don't have the big boxes until we get way out west. But all of these businesses are small business owners. So I don't think maybe you need to see your competition against the large corporation, because corporate America is going to exist whether you start your small business or not. I think you need to see your competition as yourself first. Get started, and get started with a solid foundation. And don't focus so much on what corporate America is doing, because they're going to be corporate America. But we need you, and we need you to be in a position where you're creating a business, Dell, in an industry where you can actually make a profit. Because a lot of times we start businesses in areas where I just like making cupcakes and I can make 100 cupcakes. No, you're gonna have to make 2 million cupcakes a day for that to be a business that's going to put you over the edge. So I think researching the type of business and the type of business industries that will help you to generate the correct amount of revenue to impact your community, I think it's good for us to be home-based businesses, but I think that we're better than that. I think we do have what it takes, and we do have the resources to be building businesses in the tech field, in the STEM field, in those areas where you're actually going to really generate a profit versus just selling cupcakes. And I know I kind of got off on a tangent there. But one of the things, a little bit, Dale, to the conversation about entrepreneurship is, we have another question. Come on, Brea, you can come up. Actually, Dr. Faust, let me do this with you. Talk a little bit about the internships that the students have an opportunity to experience inside of the school district, and how the community businesses that are already thriving, how they interact with that.
So we have what's called a steering committee for our Diploma Plus, and throughout that steering committee we have individuals from, of course, corporate America who come, and they are literally looking for our students. And so that's the plus, that they're looking for our students. And so we have partnered with several industries within the Wyandotte County corporate America portion for our students, whether it's the medical side or it's the regular, just the business side of things. So that's where we are now. But however, what we are doing, and this is one that where we have to develop, we're developing a intern profile, because what's happening is, yes, we're giving them the internships, but the employer or employer, it doesn't know what the student needs. And so we're wanting to create a rubric of, at the end of this internship, this is what the student will have. So then they're able to create a portfolio to say, I did this, and then having that dual conversation between the employer and the intern, so that they will be able to measure, okay, this is your benchmark. But currently, right now, we're working on the profile of the intern, which will help guide our students' thoughts. So if we know that for entrepreneurship, this is the profile that you need, then that'll help guide students in year one. This is what it looks like. This is what they're looking for, because it may not be an entrepreneur. They may need something else prior to getting there, but our goal is to help them become successful, not put a barrier.
Okay, my question is actually for you is, I have a no bullying campaign, and I would like to know if no bullying is a key component that you would like your students to learn about.
So, of course, our district does a lot with bullying and social, I was going to say social justice, social emotional learning. And so one of the things that our students, and we have literally talked with the students at the high school, and that's not, bullying isn't one of the things, which is surprising. That's not a top issue. The top issue in the district for our high schoolers is, what do we do after high school? So yes, I mean, we have several in our school district. Every school, we have 43 schools. Every school has a social worker. Every school has a guidance counselor. So we have jumped on top of social emotional learning, and we are going to be doing some restorative justice program on next year. So we are training actually everyone at the central office is actually going through trauma training and social emotional learning. So we're starting with, even the central office will know exactly what it looks like, what it feels like. So we're on that. Thank you.
I have a business idea for you. You need to take that no bullying campaign and train the community organizations and the corporate professionals and all of those that do it really sneaky or less sneaky across the community. Because that social emotional learning component doesn't change when you're an adult if you never had it before. So you all know, and you've all seen a lot of community dysfunction centered around some of the similar things that these kids are bullying. So when you tell them to stop bullying, you do that same nonsense, you need to hold the adults as equally as accountable as you do the kids. So that's just a total aside. But that's just a recommendation as the evolution of Grandma's tea.
Question. I want to switch now to talk about some of the resources that are lacking in Wyandotte County. And I'm going to try to stay off my soapbox, but maybe not. I know that we are a community that is very siloed. There are a lot of organizations that pop up and do things, but we don't collaborate all the time, or sometimes we have a cross-reference of resources, or sometimes there's an oversaturation of a one resource here, or there's funding over here for a particular set of resources, but somehow they keep missing us. In your report, Dale, you talked about the number in revenue, and this was so interesting to me. And I want to say that your statistic was for Wyandotte County or Kansas City at least, that the average Black female entrepreneur, her revenue is somewhere around, for a year, somewhere around $28,000 to $29,000.
That's national. I think
It's a national?
Lower.
Ours might be even lower than that. Where our counterpart, her revenue is somewhere between $190,000 in 1 year?
Well, nationally, I think white women make about 150. The second closest peer group to Black women is Latino women, and they make double the amount on average as Black women. So by far, out of any intersectional group, Black women make the less per business.
Yet we are the fastest starters in the market.
Fastest growing business owners in the nation. For those of you who don't know, Black women created 1 out of every 3 women-owned businesses between 2002 and 2012, and 1 out of every 5 businesses in the entire United States during that same period. So by far, Black women are the fastest growing group of business owners in the nation.
But we are the lowest revenue generators.
Right, and part of that is the types of businesses that are being started, the pace that Black women are starting businesses, and when you start a lot of businesses, they're smaller. That drives the average revenue down. But a lot of it is we don't have a good system of support for Black entrepreneurs in general, honestly, but Black women in particular. It's just not there, which is why we've been doing so much work over the last year.
So tell us a little bit about what your feedback is about what kind of support does the Black entrepreneur look for? What is it that they actually need?
Here's the first thing, and I'm going to go meta on you. I'm going to go big level. We need to, because I'm very optimistic and I'm very positive about our future. But a few things that we have to dramatically improve on, and that is we have to. Okay, so I'm trying to be diplomatic about this. If we do another prayer walk without being very intentional about how we transform our community from the ground up economically, it's going to really, really grind my gears, because I love the Lord like you all love the Lord. But we've been doing prayer walks for a long time. We've been talking social justice for a long time. And because this is a conscious conversation, we're going to talk like conscious people talk. There's some structural things, like we piloted a project in Reverend's Church called Our Community, Our Business, to get more pastors engaged in the entrepreneurial process. Because, for example, Black women are also the most religious group of individuals in the nation. And where are they going to get their sustenance, their motivation, and their support? The Black church. So then why isn't the Black church empowering them to become better entrepreneurs where they live versus having to go and figure it out from everybody else when they trust the pastor that's right in front of them? So there's one thing for spiritual sustenance, but the community needs more than that, because obviously your prayer hasn't been translating into transformation in our communities. And historically, and I'm not beating up on the church because I love the church and I always defend the church, but here's the thing, if you look historically, the Black churches were the institutions that centered everything in our community, political, social, economic. This is why the transformation happened, because people would fund the church would turn around as the bank, and then turn around and lend out. We've lost that. So one, there's a communal perspective from our religious institutions. There's a mindset challenge that we have to deal with too. The belief that all of our transformation comes from outside us versus within us. God has given us everything that we need to do the things we need to do. The problem is not resources, it's not talent. It's the ability to pull things together in a meaningful, unified way to create the change we want to see. We're so busy running outside of ourselves to find out who's the next grant versus saying how can we coordinate internally to do the things we need to do. Like we can talk about the actual things we need from a training standpoint, but that's only going to put a finger in the hole in the dam. It's not going to change it. So what starts with us is with us, and we can transform our entire existence within a decade. One more thing, and I'm going to let these guys talk as much as they want, I promise. So most people don't know the power of Black people in this way. So between when Emancipation Proclamation to approximately 50 years, the number of Black businesses in the United States increased by 1,150%. We created over 180 Black banks, over 150 HBCUs in a 50-year time period coming out of slavery, where they didn't want us to read, write. They kept us essentially locked up or locked out. And in 50 years after that period, we essentially transformed ourselves under Jim Crow to unprecedented levels. The land ownership was greater than it's ever been in the history of America in a 50-year period of time. So you can't tell me with YouTube, eBay, Amazon, Dr. Files, DA, all the people in this room, that we can't do it in less than 20. I'm done.
So, of course, small business or business, that's not my area, but I can say, I love to support. However, I think one of the things that's lacking, and my wife and I talk about this, because we'll support, it's customer service. That's a big one. That's a big one, and we choose not to go back because of the customer service. A restaurant, we wait double the time. There's not, all we're asking is, sorry for the wait. And then you get your service and it's not up to where it needs to be, so then I don't recommend to the next person. So that's one of the things, and even I have friends who, they were sending the t-shirt, and so I hit them back up and was like, hey, I ordered 4, you sent 3. Oh, we forgot. I said, well, I can't recommend you when you were messing up on my order. And that was just a small thing where they sent the wrong size, and corporate, they do those things, but who's checking? And so sometimes we don't want to hear the truth. But of course, that's not my area of expertise, but just my input.
What I would say is, all right. Everybody's awake. So a couple things, right? One, before I was the prosecutor, I was an entrepreneur, and my wife and I had our own law practice where I was a criminal defense lawyer and she was a family law lawyer. And so we had to deal with the overhead, we had to deal with the bills, we had to deal with the customer service, and Dr. Faust, you're absolutely right. You have to operate not just in the spirit of excellence, because a lot of people say that, right? Let's operate in the spirit of excellence, but you have to move from the spirit of excellence into actual excellence. And so when you get to actual excellence, then you can keep people coming back. And so our business was successful, was very successful. And it was only God who said, leave it and go and do this civil job or wonderful service to the community and become the DA. But it was a part of being focused on the people that you serve. And when you do a great work and you do it in excellence, the customers will continue to come back. I had a lot of customers from both Kansas and Missouri. You know, a few from Wyandotte, you know, just a little bit. But the focus was making sure that I established the level of excellence that I needed to keep them coming. I want to jump back just a little bit at my dear brother Dale, if you don't mind, because we know the scripture, right? That my people perish for the lack of knowledge. One of the biggest issues that I see from that base, right? Historically, we can go back to the church, and the church was the root of not just the money for the businesses and starting up, but your political movements, right? The voting. I'm going to say that word again. Voting. We have the least amount of people voting in the country is an African American population. And whereas you go back to the times where we were pushing for equal rights and equal justice, we were driving them by droves. And so that knowledge base is making sure that our churches are educating the community and educating our parishioners to doing more than pray. Now, I want to make sure we get this, because I'm a strong believer that you cannot get to where we are in life in any place without doing two things. One, praying, and then two, the work. So my mic gonna go out now. I get talking about praying and God, you're gonna turn my mic on. So you can't get to where you need to go or where God has for you to go without prayer and work. And one without the other will not work. And so I want to be careful to make sure we understand that prayer is a must, right? If you look at it, I recall being in law school, and this was in Washburn in Topeka, Kansas, and I had a old judge. He was the first African-American federal judge, and he said to me that he had to put some folks, black folks, in the courtroom to fight for Brown versus Board of Education, but he also had to do like Dr. King and put some of them out there on the peace walks, because you can't have all of your eggs in one basket. Right. And so with that, you have to make sure that the churches are educating our folks on both fronts. It is extremely important that we have that foundation of prayer and faith, which is why I would absolutely say that's why we were able to go so far in those 50 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, is because of our faith in something higher and our prayer and belief that we can do all things through Christ. But then after that, we added our work behind it. It's that work part that has to come with the prayer and through the pulpit out through to the parishioners.
Yeah, and I'm not really that hard. I'm pro-black church, so don't get me wrong. I mean, Reverend was even confident enough to let me do this special Sunday and come up and preach. I don't know how well I did. I don't think anybody got saved, but
if the Reverend let you, I'm sure you did well.
But no, don't get me wrong. I don't make assumptions. So what I recognize is that a lot of our pastors have not been educated, and we expect in many cases, too much from our churches. So I don't want people to be confused by that. And so when, you know, like I deal with a wide variety of people from corporate boardrooms, but I deal a lot with conscious black people because that's how I came up, right? And they attack the church vociferously all the time. And I defend the church all the time. What I'm saying is that the objective of the church, as I see it, is greater than what they have limited themselves to today. And you have some wonderful churches in this city that I see who are taking it beyond their walls, outside of more than just an evangelical event, you know, where they're not just saying, you know, come and get this emotional cathartic experience, but they're actually structuring it in different dimensions. And so we need a repivot. We need to repivot our institutions. And I'm using them as an example simply because so many people still trust you all. Like the number of people that referenced you today shows me how powerful your voice is in this community, for example. So if we can get our Main Street community organizations, urban leagues, NAACPs, etc., who still have a brand, even though they're less than effective than what they used to be, if we can get our churches to pivot again like they did into civil rights and begin to say, because a rising tide lifts all boats. If I'm a pastor, right, because I actually was a pastoral major for a year and a half before, I don't know if it was the devil or the Lord called me to business. It still remains to be seen. But even when I was ministering and all of these other things, I'm thinking, wow, if I'm a pastor, don't I want my congregation to be well off, to go from poverty to prosperity? And I'm not talking about that fake prosperity gospel, name it, claim it stuff. I'm not talking about that because God has got to work, like you said, and he's a God of order and process. But if I'm a pastor, don't I want my congregation to go from an average household income of $27,000 to $32,000 to $42,000? Because that's going to allow me to do more of the work of the Lord based upon the income that they put in the tithes and offerings that allows me to then go out and more effectively share the gospel. These are things that our pastors did in the past.
Absolutely.
That was our anchor, our bread and butter. And whether you're a Christian or you believe in some other faith, we should demand of our institutions, community, faith, or otherwise, that they legitimately serve our best needs. And that's how things create change, but we can do it. It's not that hard.
All right, we're gonna pass the plate. It just sounded good. Okay, I have a question. What do you propose brown men do to shift our ownership of business? What are the figures with regard to brown men business owners in our community, specifically in KCK? What do those statistics look like? Do you know, Del?
Well, I believe you're approximately the same nationally. So black women are the only group of business owners that have more businesses than their men. 60% of all black businesses are owned by black women, 40% by men. There's still a gap, and I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, between the average sales. So black men still generate on average more sales than black women. But I predict a few things, just looking at the numbers. So right now, the black male, black female wage gap is the smallest between any other group, right? So it's very, very close. Obviously, black women are the fastest growing group of educated women in America. Black men are the opposite. Black women have more businesses than black men. So I predict that over time that black women will equal or exceed black men in every major educational and economic outcome within the next decade to two. And I don't know if that's healthy. And I'm not talking about it purely from gender role thing. I'm talking about that you need a healthy balance of economic productivity, because if black men are lagging so far behind overall, that creates an imbalance in a lot of different things. I mean, think about it, from relationship structure, from household formation, from all of these different kind of things. And also it speaks to a lot of other things. It speaks to our education and criminal justice system in particular, and how that's decimating us as black men in that space. And so then you have an imbalance within your household and your community, because now black women are pulling so much of the load in that community, and black men are just trying to keep up, stay ahead, stay out of prison, or stay in the educational system to get better outcomes. And so has to become a point where we kind of step back and say, okay, how do we look at it holistically? Because what's happening now is there's too much segmentation, in my opinion, where obviously I'm doing things around Black women because there's momentum there, but that's part of a larger cosmology of the Black community where we have to say, how do we create better balance, educational balance, incarceration and justice balance, faith balance, and emotional balance? And these are the conversations that I'm not really seeing happen across the nation because we're too busy segmenting ourselves in different ways and focusing on that segmentation, but not seeing how that segmentation feeds into the whole. And we have to be about community first, which means commune in unity. And so those are some big issues that I'm seeing right now.
So I really like the idea of the repivot. I feel like that's something that our community, Wyandotte County in particular, can do. And I'm hopeful that this conversation and this awareness and all of what's happening will put into your minds and into our minds, how do we actually repivot? How do we connect these three dots? How do we do that? And we start with the group that is coming up in the 6th grade. And to see that, as you talked about the matriculation process, how long it actually takes for us to build something that's sustainable and get back in a position where we're not underserved and we're not underrated, we're not, you know, the last thing to be thought about. I will say this about the Black women movement, and I think that it has come from, you know, people say all the time, you know, create your own momentum, create your own hype, right? And I think that Black women did that very well. And I do feel that it could be to our detriment. Black girls rock, right? Black girl magic, Black this, Black, you know, and so we have got to, Black women, we have got to now come and champion these Black men to come back into our lives. And we need to clap better than that. Because these are the Black men who are going to raise our Black boys, who are going to be a part of that matriculation back into our community. It may not happen in our lifetime. All of us sitting in this room, we may not see it, but if we don't start now, we'll never see it. We have got to connect these dots. And one of the questions that came to us, Dr. Faust leads right into this. It says, how can we actually change the mindset and educate ourselves as adults to make sure that our children are in a position when we send them to your classrooms? What does the district do now to connect with parents? Do you all have any programs? Are there any initiatives to actually make these parents maybe a little more responsible and a little more empowered?
So, you know, it's kind of hard to make adults do anything. What I will say, before I answer that, I'll talk about how the expectation of what I would say, just giving parental advice from a parent, it starts with you. Everything that you do, you are a mirroring image of your child. So when you're giving them those defeated conversations, I know the kids, I got spankings, whippings, or what we call them, or whoopings. And my parents didn't explain why we did it wrong. My wife, she was more like the group on the Cosby side. And so they explained to her, so we tried that, okay, you're in trouble, you're gonna do this, and then afterwards we explained why. That has actually changed my approach. Because, you know, once you tell someone you did this, you did this, you did this, you go to your room. It's not a conversation. And then people come back and they do it again because there was never a conversation. So what I recommend is this, and I've shared this when I was a teacher. I would tell the kids, I can't make you do anything. Really, I can't. I can't make the kids do anything. They just have to suffer the consequences. Because there will be consequences if you choose not to do this. And I think that operates on all of our sides. So I always share that with everyone. I can't make you come to school and support your child, but you'll suffer the consequences. I can't make you read every night with your child, but you will suffer the consequences. You know, I can't make you pour into your child and, you know, give them this self-esteem, but you will suffer the consequences. So what do I say to parents? We can't make you do anything, but you will suffer the consequences. And so self-esteem comes from parents. You know, telling your child you can do this. Because the first thing I said, well, my mom said, my dad said I could do this. Okay, your dad said, so let me show, how does your dad, what does that mean? And then students are able to talk through that. Now, do we give parenting classes? No, we don't. But we do offer conferences. We offer, parent nights where we're showing them what the expectation is for their children. But the problem is we show the expectation and no one actually even buys into it. And then you come later and you say, we need homework. My child's not doing homework. I will show you that there's nothing that statistically states that giving homework will get your child into college. There's nowhere where it says that. What it'll say, there's a book out there called The Battle of Homework. If you get an effective teacher who actually teaches the child, they will actually do just as well as a parent, as a teacher who gives homework. Because what happens is, and I've taught in the affluent schools, we'd get projects, and this elaborate project would come in. And I knew that the child was not capable of doing that. I mean, we did a 4th grade science project and the student was doing light refraction. I said, we hadn't even covered that. That's a physics. This is where the light, you put the straw and it looks like it's cutting through. I'm like, you're 9 years old. We're talking about worms. So that's the problem with homework. We don't know who's doing it. So it's more of participation. So it's actually, that's a time where you as the parent can buy into your child and have a conversation on what are you doing, how is it working. But everyone wants homework, that's gonna make them better. But what we try to give them is when we sit down and we try to create a plan, because we do have plans for all of our kids, but our parents don't always buy into the plan. But then we get blamed for it.
I'll add on to that and simply say I think a lot of it comes down to folks, 2 things, expectation and patience, right? Expectation. You have to raise your level of expectation that you have for your own child. If you don't show them or exhibit to them that you expect more than, catch it, stay out of jail, stay out of trouble, don't go to prison, don't be like your daddy. What we deal with in the criminal justice system are folks who come from, I'm not going to say broken homes, I'm going to say broken minds, from parents, whether single parent or married mom and daddy, but they have talked to them like trash. They have just simply had the expectation of, you don't get in my way, don't have me looking crazy. If I have to come to that school, you represent me, I'm gonna tear your butt up if you didn't. And so it's all of, this is conscious conversation, right? All right, and so emotion is so ever important. It is so important. So as a part of the district attorney's office, we handle child in need of care cases. And child in need of care cases are the cases where the state comes into your home and take your child because we believe that your child is being either physically, mentally, or sexually abused. Communication is so important because we have so many children who are being sexually molested by people that they know. 1 in every 9 children are being sexually molested by people that they know, family members, the deacon, the preacher, the teacher, all of them, right? But if the child doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't feel like mom and daddy got time to sit down and have a conversation with them, then they're not saying anything. Or they're just sucking it up and they're taking it, and then they get to school and they act a plumb nut, right? And then here comes that new juvenile detention center that we didn't build. And we haven't dealt with the underlying. So we have to learn to have patience in the midst of everything that we got going on. Awesome parenting, awesome businesses, awesome district attorney, awesome superintendent. But family is first. Slow the heck down and listen to our children.
That's why I'm so delighted to sit up on stage with these 2 gentlemen. I mean, because these are important figures, and I will celebrate them all day and every day. I mean, people that are stepping out and being examples and that are visible and that care and are compassionate, because you rarely see that in a lot of other areas of life, especially as Black individuals outside your immediate family. we live in kind of this Mad Max, beyond Thunderdome type of in the desert trying to survive and everything, and we become so hard and so harsh in many ways towards each other, even though we still are one of the most communal people that are out there. And so there's a lot, like, we're talking about very tangible things, right? We're talking about, you know, criminal justice, we're talking about education and entrepreneurship, but all of these are embedded in community. Like, these are things that needed to be addressed to have a fully functioning community, but the foundation of the community is the way that we perceive ourselves, love each other, and support each other. Then you stack the technical things on top of that. You can't technical your way out of a flawed foundation. And I want to echo what both of these gentlemen said, because like I mentioned, I've taught over 150 kids, work with an organization called Black Men United in Omaha. And so Nebraska Correctional Youth Facility for kids that have been adjudicated as adults, meaning that they've done something pretty bad for the most part, something violent or something sexual. Now, I tell everybody that the smartest kids that I've ever met, and I've taught at Creighton University, I've taught at our community college, I've taught hundreds of people in business plan classes or events. Some of the smartest people I've ever met were these kids sitting around that table. Sitting around this table in their brown jumpsuits that are coming into that room. And I'll give you just one short example. So anybody remember when there was a big debate on whether there should be a minimum wage hike, and then Seattle raised it to $15? And you know, people on the right were saying, oh, this is anti-American, and people were on the left were like, this is the way that we should do it to be a, you know, all of those debates, which doesn't even matter to me. But they were talking about that, and so I don't even know how we got in that conversation in this room. And one of the kids was like, well, what if you raise the wage rate, then what happens if you raise it, then one, how would that business owner be able to pay that additional expense? And then two, what about all the people who were already at that wage that had a higher responsibility? Well, how are they going to feel about it? So this kid's sitting around this table, and whatever this 2-minute conversation nailed all of the issues that everybody was talking about under this economic issue. I'll give you one more example. So I also was teaching a group every year. They had this big conference called Men Honor. Brought 20 young black men and 20 Latino young men in their ages in high school. And I used to do a session where I created this really cool event where I used candy as capital, and they had to do like these little business things. Well, one of the groups of guys came out with this little business idea that they had, which was going to be called the iShoe. The iShoe was going to be able to connect to your iPhone app. It was going to be able to register like your steps, if you jump, how high you jumped, and a lot of other factors. So this is what that group's idea was. Well, lo and behold, a year later, LeBron came out with some shoes with Nike that did the exact same thing that these young kids, never been entrepreneurs, never done anything, sat around that table and figured out. So how much of this are we losing because we haven't found the good mechanisms of support, starting within our community and our educational system and our expectations, to the world? Where, I mean, they're mowing our kids down, men and women. Just because women aren't out there gangbanging, getting sent to jail, doesn't mean that they are not fixed with the same mentality.
I'm sorry. They are.
Yeah. Go. Was there a question?
So you said, how do we even start? Like, I heard y'all saying, I get it, me as a black man in America, I'm very pro-black. It's hard. Like, it ain't easy to, like y'all said, as far as the DX said about our parents telling us one thing, because that was my question, that's a fact. Because at the end of the day, like I was conditioned, like you said, kids, you should be unseen, period. So like me, growing up, teaching my 13-year-old and 12-year-old, 16-month-old, about just being black in America, that's hard. Because I wasn't taught how to be black in America. So at the end of the day, even coming from the inner city, where I'm from, you get profiled. I still get profiled to this day. And seeing it just me being me, and being a black man, like being a strong black man at that, but also being vulnerable, being mentally stable, it's not being taught. So as an adult, when I ask, how do we address our children, it's not that you can't tell an adult nothing, because you go to work every day, you listen to your boss tell you what to do. So you can tell an adult what to do, but as a black person, you're always told what to do. You're not shown. And as a black person, you never have, it's rare that you find somebody that's the same color as you, that's going to hold their hand out and say, hey, come with you. We're always at odds. Whether it's gang banging, whether you're rich, you're still at odds. It's It's a lot of black people that's rich. They ain't doing nothing for the black.
Yeah, all that's loaded. Come on up, Brandon. And this is going to be actually. I'm so sorry, guys, but we're really out of time. This is going to be the last question, and then we'll wrap up.
So my only thing is because like me and my wife had these conversations, and it's hard for me as a black man to express my feelings because I'm always in survival mode. So for me, it's more of a, do I teach my kids to be in survival mode because that's what my parents taught me? Because the way of the world ain't changing. The way of the world is always still gonna be white. These corporations still gonna be white. What black corporate owner do you know in America that's being taught to you? I don't know. You can say, yeah, well, this black person is the first black CEO of this. Was that given to them? They still got to answer to somebody, right? They got to answer to a board, right? Is that board black or is it white? So for me, it's basically just how is a black person in America, like I asked the question, how do we, like as an adult, do I recondition my mind to help that next generation via my kids to be better than what being preached over and over and over? Because that's frustrating.
So one thing I want to definitely talk about is, of course, I'll answer that part of the part that I can answer. But I have daughters, I have two girls, and so oftentimes you don't expect, there's a whole different world out there for women who are in power. And so, you know, I train them, even my wife, she has a great position. And so we talk about leadership. One, I have this thing is never let them see you cry. Like, you cannot be a female, this is Charles, and you sit at that table and you're supposed to be there, and you can't get emotional because that's the expectation. So I say, you get yourself together, you need to go sit out in your car, you need to cry it out, you need to beat the steering wheel, you put your makeup back on, you get back in there, and you do what you were supposed to do. However, I tell my daughters this, when there's an issue at school, they are to ask the teacher, how can I get this? What is it that they're supposed to do? Because I'm going to ask them every morning, every day, they get in the car, my wife would call, I'm asking those questions. So they say, well, this didn't happen, my teacher didn't do this. Okay, so what are you going to do? So I fuel them with the questions that they need to ask their teacher. My oldest one, she knows she asks the questions and she follows it up with an email to the teacher, BCCs my wife and myself. So then the teacher responds or she CCs us. And then if she's not given the right response, then we talk her through that, what needs to happen. And then there's a time where it's like, all right, time out for you. It's time for us to step in. So then we let them know, one, if you're telling the truth, I'm going to support you. If you're not telling the truth, don't make me go in there and look foolish. Because then there are consequences. So they already know that. Don't bring it. If you did this, then we're going to own it. There's called fallibility. You apologize, and we're going to do it. So we're teaching them at that age, you have to advocate for yourself. Because no one's going to give you anything. I tell the kids every day, I have a superintendent student council. I tell them, this is a uniform. I take the uniform off, I'm a black man. No one knows what I do. It doesn't matter. I get the same looks that they get. So I'm not blaming anyone for me being African American. I embrace it. So my thing is telling myself and telling others that I belong here. And so that's how we have to do it. But then it's how do you act when you belong there? So if I know that I'm the tallest person in there, I can't be the angry black man. I'll tell them that's not the role that I'm taking. So I already go ahead and I help them define this is what I'm not. So I'm the educated black man who's going to sit at the table. I'm the guy who is going to make sure that there's fair and equitable access sitting at the table. But what you're not going to do is sway me to think a way that I know that's against my core belief. So I train African American males, African American females, brown, black, white, whomever, that it's all in your core values. So what do? We have to let people know that you belong there. Yes, I don't think there's anyone who will ever not have to answer to anyone. So I tell them, you're going to always answer to someone. Doesn't matter, you're going to answer. But what are you doing? What is your response? You don't, just because someone does something to you, you don't hold that grudge against everyone that looks like that person. That's called prejudice. And then you're saying, oh, well, I'm not. Yeah, you are if you're doing that. So we have to understand, one, what is it that we're putting in to our kids? My wife and I do this. If there's something that we don't like about an adult that has interaction with our children, we remove that conversation from our children. That's not a conversation we have in front of children. We have the conversation and then we go out because we don't want our children to, unless they're doing something harmful to them, but we don't want our children to react to say, oh, my mom said she doesn't like you, or my dad said they didn't like you, because one, they have to sit in that classroom, or they have to be in that building with them, and I don't need my child having to fight adult issues. That's for me. So I give the positive, we'll handle it. Yes, that was unjust. That person shouldn't have done that to you. We'll handle it. And so when we do parent conferences, my child sits there. And I say, no, Kennedy, share your point of view. Brooklyn, what's your point of view? Because then I've empowered them and given them the words and I've coached them. Now, if it wasn't true, it wasn't true. But that's from your point of view. So the teacher or whomever may say, well, this is not it. But you have to understand, this is what they thought. So we're going to own what they thought. The perception is true. So sometimes we have to get people to understand, and you have to put words in front of them so they can understand exactly where that person is coming from, versus both of us sitting up on the edge of the table like, you knock if you buck, if you won't. We're all here. But no, so that's what people are expecting. So you have to change the narrative and give your children the vocabulary, because that's what we don't give them, vocabulary. Because we tell them, you better not talk, but give them the vocabulary. There's a respectful way to do it. I mean, my 11-year-old is the negotiator of all negotiations. She rolls and rocks and rolls with the adults and gets my wife, everyone, teachers to do whatever she needs because she has the vocabulary to do it. So my thing is, for any of you, have the vocabulary. Just because you yell and scream, I'm still going to say no. Like, yelling and screaming doesn't mean anything to me. Because at the end, what is it going to get you? It's going to get you a firm no. It's going to get you a no trespassing. It's going to get you arrested. And then you're going to be over here because now I'm scared of you.
Can I add on to that? I would say a couple things. Two things. One, we as black folk, we have to be comfortable in our own skin. Now, well, I'll take that clap, thank you. Now, all of us here, we are, but that means more than just being, I'm a strong black man. It means that I know how to operate and be happy about my blackness without scaring white folk. Because if I scare white folk because of my blackness, then white folk gonna treat me as the angry black man. Because there is an implicit bias in a lot of people that they don't even realize that they're afraid of you. Now, I said we gotta accept and be strong and happy about who we are and confident in that, but that means also that we have to understand what others may be thinking. I'm not saying to subject yourself to a whole bunch of racist folk, but what I am saying is that if you realize I'm the district attorney, the first black in the state of Kansas, which means most rooms that I go into, I have never sat in. And so if I have never sat in, and everyone that is around the table has never sat with someone like me, then their thought process is only what they have seen on television about me. And so if I come in with the mindset of, I'm about to show them who I am, then there's going to be an automatic shutdown. Told y'all. Whereas now this is an opportunity, and I get mixed on this because some people say it's not our responsibility, others say it is. I believe that it is every person's responsibility in your space to educate folks. And you're the only one in the room. This is prime time to educate non-black folks on how black folks are. So what you show them and what you exhibit them to them, they then can walk away knowing, oh, that Dr. Faust, he's all right. He wasn't mean, he wasn't a gangster, he wasn't a thug, right? And now they go out and educate others. And so we have to be comfortable and understand what others may be thinking about. To your other question and concern, how do we as black men get to that point and understand that? I'll tell you, we have to humble ourselves. We can be strong black men and still be humble and realize we don't know everything. My dear brother Dale, this is my first time meeting him, but we gonna have lunch because he said some words that I ain't never heard. But I'm gonna humble myself enough to learn from this brother. I got lunch next week with the only African-American Court of Appeals judge here in the state of Kansas because I sat on a panel with him and I said, I need to learn from you. I didn't have I'm sitting on a panel, then I'm on their level. We have to humble ourselves and be able to learn from one another, which means stepping outside of our box and calling them and say, hey, I know we don't know each other, but can we get to know each other? Because that's what everyone else does. Why don't we?
A few different things. I think we have to distinguish between what it means to be hard and what it means to be strong. And in our community, we've kind of got those two things confused. And so a lot of people mistake hardness for strength. But strength is flexible, it's pliable, it has the ability to adapt, it has the ability to be resilient. Anything that's hard, when it gets smashed, it crumbles. And so a lot of what has happened is, we'll celebrate, oh, she's a strong black woman, or he's a strong black man. And these are some of the hardest people that you ever met. They have no flexibility. They have no resiliency. They have no ability to adapt. That is strength. And I think part of that strength is humility. Because you want to be, I've always said that ego is the greatest defense a black man has against the tyranny of America. And by that, I mean, your sense of self and your positive regard for who you are has to be strong enough to withstand the psychological oppression that this nation puts upon us in the media, in the way that we're treated, in the way we're isolated in our communities, and all of these different things. But at the same time, that ego isn't a ego that says it's all about me. The fundamental thing I teach the guys in the joint is that there's a difference between being selfish and being self-aware. And being selfish means that you only consider yourself without regard for others. Being self-aware means you put your oxygen mask on yourself, like the airplane metaphor, where you're actively looking to be healed and you're actively looking to grow as a person, but you're also intensely aware of how your behavior influences others around you. And that your greatest responsibility exists in healing yourself and then also serving others, because that's a balanced human being. That's what we teach the guys, and then we teach them that they're leaders of men. So we don't start with that, oh, just stay out of trouble. No, we say we have expectations of you to go out and lead and create exponential change in your community. And I would say that to all black men is that we've been bamboozled into a perception of ourselves as we're supposed to be a certain way. And the way that we are is really destructive to ourselves, our psychology, our significant others, and our communities as a whole. But that's a narrative that's been placed upon us. And so this is work, man. I be working on myself. Like, it's a constant state of evolution, because a mature person, a self-aware person, is continually looking at themselves and saying, how do I get better in this situation? How do I treat my wife better and be more attentive? How do I better engage with my brothers and humble myself when I need to? How do I be strong in areas where I was previously weak, but people need me to be strong? Like, these are if we talk real consciousness, this is fundamental to our very existence and our growth as a people, because they're coming for us. Don't be confused. You cannot look at the numbers of what's going on with this and say that they're not. And I say that in the biggest sense of the word. There's a lot of people that will support us. But fundamentally, we got to rally around each other and ourselves and all the dimensions of blackness. Get rid of this colorism. Get rid of this, oh, well, they're with this person X, and so they're not black enough, or they're not Hotep, so they're not black enough, or they got a doctorate, so they're not black enough and a little light skin. All of that, and bring it back to what we are, which is a community of people working together, that loves each other, and is trying to take the next step every day as Black people. And a lot of what we're saying starts to solve itself, because now we're embedded in a womb of protectedness that then satisfies our psychology and empowers us spiritually. And we can get there. That's what I keep telling y'all. Y'all keep not believing me. It's not a 100-year journey. Get there, 10, 15, 20 good solid years. Just give me that, and we're going to be all right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I feel like we could go on and on and on and on, but we do have to stop. So I just want to wrap up really quickly. I want to put out, when I had this idea of having this conscious conversation, it is exactly what it has morphed into. I know that entrepreneurship is the bedrock of us moving forward, but it's not the only thing, it's not the only component. We have to be cognizant of what's going on in our justice system. We have to be involved in our education system. We have to continue to pay attention to what's happening with us economically in terms of entrepreneurship. So here's my ask. Here's my ask. My ask is this. From everyone, the community, and starting with you, DA, since they're already going to build or building the juvenile justice system, tell us what we can do so that we can get some type of entrepreneurial training in that facility. That's my first ask. My second ask, Dr. Faust, is how can we, or will you be willing to, when you teach the educators, when you all have your conclave in August, some kind of way, ask, inform, educate all of your teachers to ask their students, what is it that you want to own when you become an adult? And my third ask, Bill, is I really want us to move toward that repivoting and whatever resources. I know you've done a lot of work in Wyandotte County in the past, and my hat is off to all of the pastors that are in the building. But I am saying, as the host and as the person who is very conscious of what is going on in Wyandotte County, let us know what it is that we can do to reignite so that we can repivot. Because what I don't want is for this to just be another great conversation. It has to move towards activation. So those are my three asks. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And I just want all of you all to know that EBB is in the community. Entrepreneur Business Basics is in the community. We will have a youth entrepreneurship camp this summer for students in the USD 500. So that information is at the table. We will also have a fall cohort. So if you're in here and you're interested in starting a business, I'll be in the hallway. I'd love to talk to you about how you can be involved. And I thank you very, very much for your attendance. You all have a wonderful evening.